Welcome back everyone, I'm Nick, this is Swiftful Thinking. In the last video, we set up our navigation to our detail view, so now we can go to that detail view, but there's some extra detailed information that we actually want on all of these coins that we do not yet have in our application. So what we're going to do in this video is create yet another API call that we're going to call when we initialize this detail view. And just like we did for the coin data service, the market data service, we're going to again create a model, we're going to create a service, and that service is going to manage all of the logic for downloading from the internet. So you guys should now be getting used to the structure of our app and all the layers that we have. The only thing to really notice here is that we are making this API call when we go to the detail view. And that's because when we're on the home view, we don't want to be making all these extra API calls to download this extra information unless we are going to the detail view. Because if we're not going to the detail view, we don't need this data, we don't need this extra API call. And that's just yet another way we're making our app as efficient as possible.
All right, welcome back everyone. I am back in our Xcode project, of course, and I have our current app built, my simulator on the right here. And in the last video, we added some awesome navigation that was super efficient to our app so that we can click on any of these rows and go to a detail view. And we already have a lot of information for each of our coins, because if we look in our coin model, there's a lot of data that we're actually getting in our initial API request, right? This is a lot of good stuff. But one of the things that I noticed is not here is a description of this coin. There is no description saying like what Uniswap or whatever coin we're clicked on is. So I went and looked at the CoinGecko API, and I have it up here. So again, this is the coingecko.com/English API, and then I clicked on the explore part of the API. I will again link this website in the caption below. And if we go down to the actual APIs, there is another API that we can look at, and it's the coin's ID. And it has this little brackets here because when we call this coin's ID, we actually have to input what coin we want to fetch in this request. So unlike the last request where we called the markets, and it just was a generic get whatever the markets were, here in this request, we have to actually call a specific ID. And if we look down here, we can try it out, and I will put in the ID for Bitcoin, which is just Bitcoin, and then we can customize this API request a little bit. But before we do that, let's just execute and see what the default gives us. And I was shocked the first time I did this. First off, we can see the URL that we need to request here, which is pretty simple. It just has the coin ID at the end. But there is, and you can see how, based on like the size of this scrolling indicator, how long this response is. It is huge. And so basically there is a ton of data that we can get for each of these coins. And it's amazing that we can get this much data from a free API, honestly. This is more than we would ever need, of course. But at the top here, this big block of text is the main thing that I was looking for, and it is a description of what this coin is. And that would definitely be a great user experience to be able to put a description into our app along with some of the statistics that we already have. So in our app, when we go to this screen, and this screen is the detail view, the detail view is going to have its own view model. And we're going to initialize the view model when we initialize this screen. And in the initializer, we're going to make an API call to download this extra information for that coin. And we're doing it in that initializer so that we only download this extra information when we go to this screen. Because we don't want to download all this extra information if we don't need it. If the user is not clicking on that screen, we don't need to download this. So scrolling back up here, I'm going to customize this a little bit, and we just want the very basic stuff. So for the localization, this is basically like, do we want all of the different languages? So like Bitcoin in all these different languages in Japanese. But for my app, I'm just going to say false because I only need the English version. And it's the same thing for basically all of these. I only need the basic information. So these are all defaulted to true. I'm just going to turn them off to false. You can definitely play around with this on your own time and get some extra cool information that you might want to put into the app. And then the sparkline, we're already getting the sparkline when we're calling the first request in our markets request. So since we're getting it there, we don't need it again here. So we'll also make this false. And when we execute this, the response now is a little bit more condensed and a little bit more doable. It just ends right here. So this is what we are going to use in our app. And to decode this, we're going to need to make a model. So let's go back into our app. And our models, of course, go in the models folder. So I'm going to right click it, create a new file. It's going to be a Swift file, and I'm going to call this coin detail model. Click create. I'm going to put it right below our coin model. And let's first copy the URL that we need to call. I like to just put this data into that model file. So I'm going to make a multi-line comment. I'm going to put URL colon and paste in that URL. Up here, let's put a comment, JSON data. And below this, let's put the response. And let's go back in and just copy this response. I'm going to hold the shift button, click down to here, copy that, and just paste it here. Now we're not going to actually need this right now, so let's fold it up. Command shift left arrow, fold up that data. And I'm going to take this response and again go into that website called app.quickttype.io that we've been using, and you guys should be used to this process by now. I'm going to delete the last thing that we decoded here. Let's delete all this, and let's put in our new JSON data. And immediately it's going to give us the Swift version of that data. So I'm going to keep plain types only checked, and I'm going to make all the properties optional because if there's a chance that we ever don't get one of these, it's not crucial to running our app. So it's okay to me if it is optional. And again, I'm going to put this file in the resources folder. So if you don't want to deal with all of this, you can just copy it out of the resources folder, of course. But for now, I'm going to click this copy code on the right side here. And I'm going to go back into our file and then paste it all. And let's make this full screen quickly. And although we can get all of this, I actually don't need a lot of this data. So I'm going to clean this up a little bit. The ID symbol name, that can't hurt. Let's keep that. We don't need this platform ID. And because we don't need this platforms, we also don't need the platforms type. So down here, there's like a platforms type. I'm going to delete that. And then I'm going to delete platform ID and platforms. The block time might be cool to get. The hashing algorithm could be cool, as well as the categories. Public notice, this is already null. Let's just get rid of it. Additional notices, let's get rid of that as well. Let's see what else here. Links sounds good. Description sounds like we need that. Image, we already have the image. And then country of origin we don't need. Genesis date. We already have the market cap rank. We don't need the CoinGecko score, public interest score. We don't need status updates or the last updated. So let's just delete all of that. And let's see, we deleted the image, so we don't need this image down here. Let's see, for the links, let's do the homepage. The blockchain site, we don't really need. Chat URL, announcement URL, maybe the subreddit URL. Let's keep that one, and maybe let's actually delete the repos URL as well. You can obviously customize this if you want to change this on your app. The public interest stats we deleted, so we can get rid of that. And then let's just get rid of these extra marks. All right. I'm going to delete this welcome message that was generated as well as foundation, cleaning up our code here. And we're going to call this struct the coin detail model. All right, I'm going to take a quick look at our JSON data that we're getting here. And just make sure we have the right codable names. So ID, symbol, name are all one word in lowercase, and that's what we have here. Block time in minutes. Let's see what that looks like. block time in minutes, we have this underscore. So we actually need to customize the coding keys. So let's go back down here and let's create our enum. We'll call it coding keys, and it will be of type string and coding key, open the brackets. We'll do case ID, symbol, name. Those were all perfect. We'll do case block time in minutes. Let me just, let's paste what we have from above. And we'll do block time in minutes equals that. Let's look at the hashing algorithm. So back up here, hashing algorithm. We got to customize that one as well. Case, set it equal to the hashing algorithm. You guys should hopefully be used to this by now. I would assume so. This is like the third or fourth model we've made in this video, in this course. The categories, I'm guessing it's one word in lowercase, so we're probably fine there. Categories, perfect. Cryptocurrency here, that's not very relevant, so maybe we don't need the categories. Yeah, let's actually delete the categories. We don't need that. Welcome description. So let's look at the description quick, and it is, I guess they called it welcome description. I think that was just something to do with the website that we use to decode the JSON data, but it's actually called description when it's coming through. So let's change that to description. So welcome description is actually just description. And then links, probably just links, and then we got a homepage, as well as subreddit URL. So we need to update the subreddit URL. So we will then change so links is right, but subreddit URL is wrong. So here we need to create coding keys for the links struct as well. So we'll do enum coding keys, string coding key, open brackets, case, homepage, and case, and we'll put the subreddit URL equal to that. All right, last thing we got to do, of course, is conform these to codable, and codable. All right, and coin detail model does not conform to codable, so we must have missed something. So we have hashing algorithm. Oh, and we got to put the description. The description is just as it is, and so is the links. So let's just put it here. Description, links. Cool. So now let's create our view model, download some data, and try to convert it, see if it works. So our detail view right now is pretty plain, just has a coin. Let's, in our view model, let's right click and create a new file. It's going to be a Swift file. And let's call this detail view model. Click create. Class, we'll call it detail view model. We'll open the brackets. And now, just like our home view model, so if I go to the home view model, the home view model has a reference to the coin data service. So that's what we're going to need to set up first. We're going to set up the coin data service, except it's going to be the coin detail data service. So, if you remember correctly, in the coin data service, we do the API call. So let's right click our services, create a new file, a Swift file. We'll call it coin detail data service. Click create. And I want you guys to notice that we are using like the same structure and format of how we name everything, and we're doing that on purpose because that keeps everything organized and neat in your app. And in our coin data service, we're just going to basically copy that and paste it in our coin detail because I just want to use the same structure, of course. So let's call this one coin detail data service. Let's create a function. Let's call this get coin details. Let's call that function. And now we need our URL. So I copy and pasted that into our model. At the top here, I have the URL. I'm going to copy this and we'll just fold this back up, jump back in. And I'm going to paste the URL. Let's just paste the string of the URL inside this. And we have our new URL here. kind of annoying that it's so long. It doesn't just fit on one line. Can I fit it on one line? Yeah, cool. So the only thing we need to point out in this URL is that we need to put the coin ID right here, because if I scroll back to the website, as you see here, we had to put in the ID when we were calling that, and that's why it says Bitcoin right now, but this is the coin ID. So when we are when we're calling this, we need to actually input the coin ID. So in this coin detail service, let's just pass in a coin. So in our init, we'll say coin of type coin model, and let's just make that a variable at the top here. We'll say let coin of type coin model, and when we init it, we'll first call self.coin equals coin. So we'll set this up, and now we can reference this coin in our function. So in here, I'm going to, instead of calling Bitcoin, we're going to call / open close parentheses, and we'll just pass in the coin .id. So whatever coin we pass into this data service is going to be set here, and then we can get that coin's ID. So this API will be different for each coin, and that's why we're going to get different data, of course. So this we're going to call, let's call this coin detail subscription. And we have our handy dandy networking manager to download from the URL. It returns us some data. And we know we need to convert this data not into an array of coin model, but actually we're going to convert it into a coin detail model, just one single coin detail model. So in here, we're going to pass in a coin detail model.self. We're going to handle the completion with our networking manager, and then this will be returned coin details. And let's set this publish variable to be actually be coin details, and it will be of type, let's make it coin detail model. We'll make it optional, and we'll set it equal to nil to start. Then we'll set self.coindetails equals the returned coin details. After we get it, we'll cancel our subscription. So self.coindetails subscription.cancel. So now we can reference this coin detail data service from our new view model. And then inside that coin detail data service, we can then subscribe to this publisher. So once this gets updated, we can then update our view model. So jumping into coin detail view model, let's create a private let. We'll say coin detail service. We'll set it equal to coin detail data service. All right, so actually what I just realized is we need to pass in a coin when we create this data service. So the problem is the detail view model does not have this coin. So in our init of this detail view model, we need to pass in a coin. So here we'll say coin of type coin model. And then instead of initializing this directly, we need to initialize this variable from our init. So here we'll say self.coindetailDataService equals, and we will set it equal to a coindetailDataService, and we'll pass in the coin from our init here. And this, of course, will just be type coindetailDataService. All right, so we set this up when we initialize our detail view model. And just like we did in the home view model, let's create a private func called add subscribers, open close parentheses, open the brackets. Let's call that in our init self.add subscribers. And then in here, we're going to add a very simple subscriber. We're going to do the coin detail data service dot coin details. So that's that published variable we had just made. And for now, let's just sync, and we'll call this returned coin details. And in here, let's just print out received coin detail data. And then let's just print out returned coin details. Finally, we need to store this subscriber somewhere. So let's create a private var cancelables. And it will be equal to a set of any cancelable, which we need to import combine, any cancelable, open and close parentheses, and we can store this in our cancelables. All right, so we're not going to actually do anything with this coin details yet because we haven't built out the UI. But if we do successfully download this, we should get some of the data to actually print out, and then we'll know that we at least set this up correctly. The last thing to do is initialize this detail view model from our view. So in the detail view, we want to initialize a detail view model. So what we actually want it to be is an @state object var VM of type, let's call it, we call it detail view model, and we want to set it equal to a new detail view model. So this is how we normally initialize our view models. We've done this so many times in my courses. But the problem this one time is that we need to initialize it with a coin. And when we initialize it directly in the view here, we don't have access to the coin. We can't add this coin here because this is being created at the same time as this. And because of that, we can't access this we can't actually access this just yet. So instead, we need to initialize this state object from within our init. So we'll still pass in a coin, but then here we're going to initialize the VM. So to access the state object part of the VM, we have to use the underscores. So we'll say underscore VM, and we'll set it equal to a state object with a wrapped value. And the value, of course, is going to be a detail view model. So here we'll put in a detail view model, add in the coin, and the coin is coming directly from our init that we're passing in here. So we actually don't even need to set up a coin, and we can get rid of this as well. And then up here, this, instead of initializing it here directly, we initialized it in our init. So we can get rid of that. And we're getting an error here, and I think that's because if we look at the detail view model, it needs to conform to observable object. Observable object. This way we can observe it, of course. Let's Command-Shift-K to clean and rebuild. The error goes away. Sorry about that, guys. And this text, let's just have it say hello for a second. We're going to set this up in a future video. All right, so let's now run our application. We have the same function passing in from our app, except this time it's going to initialize a detail view model, and then that should download the data, which hopefully will print out to our console. All right, so we should also get this printout when we go to the screen. So let's click on Bitcoin. It looks like it's working. So we initialize detail view with Bitcoin, and the subscriber got set up, and when it was set up, the value was nil because that was our starting value. And then it called our URL and received the coin detail data, and then obviously here we can see the data that we downloaded from the internet. And this looks really good. We're gonna have to do a little bit of formatting here because I see this is coming in as like some kind of HTML code inside here, and I think we can just format that out later. But in this video, we have created a new model, a new API call, a new view model, and we're now downloading this data, and we're ready to actually now use this data and build out this detail view with some of this cool data. So that's it for this video. Hope you guys are excited. As always, I'm Nick. This is SwiftUI Thinking, and I'll see you in the next video.